Shmos? Shmos. There it is.
Shmos. Good morning, all those that are watching on the replay. Make sure that you subscribe and tell all your friends to subscribe. We hit 600 subscribers this week. It's not enough. There's a lot more of you out there. L'chaim. The mimer we're going to do today is the mimer of Vayemer Hashem Elav Misam Peh. It's not the first mimer, but into the Sefer of Shmos. Brand new Sefer we're starting this week. Shmos, second book. And the mimer is Vayemer Hashem Elav. The context here is that Moshe Rabbeinu does not want to be the one to take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim for many reasons. Among them, he knows that he's not from Shevet Yehuda, he's from Levi, which means he's not Mashiach, which means that there's going to be another Golus after this one. So if Moshe Rabbeinu takes the Jews out of Mitzrayim, it's going to be a temporary thing. It wasn't right away, but eventually they ended up with the Beis HaMikdash that was destroyed, and then they went into Golus, and then another one. And Moshe Rabbeinu wants that Hashem should send the ultimate Redeemer of the Yidden, and there'll be no Golus after. But how do you get out of the instruction where Hashem says go? So for 7 days, there was this back and forth. Hashem's telling Moshe Rabbeinu to go, and he's responding various different answers of why essentially he can't. One of them, for example, was that I have an older brother, Aaron. If there's anyone, it should be him. And another one, and that's the Mimer discusses here, he said, I have a speech impediment because of something that happened when Moshe Rabbeinu was a child, and Pare was testing, and he brought out a tray of coals and gold. Moshe Rabbeinu ended up burning his tongue, and he stuttered. So he's telling Hashem, me go take out the Yidden? I don't speak well.
It's impossible.
Exactly. Something like that. So Hashem says, Vayemer Hashem Elav Misam Peh Adam. Who gave a mouth to a person? In other words, you're telling me, Hashem, that I can't because I can't speak. Who do you think makes people speak? It's not going to be an issue. I'll fix it for you. Or I'll figure it out. In other words, that was the answer. In the end, of course, Moshe Rabbeinu went, and it worked out very well. We have to understand this. Moshe Rabbeinu said, I'm not a man of words. Ki chvad peh, I'm a heavy tongue, which means he stutters. What's this statement of Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't speak well? And Hashem's response, who do you think makes people speak? The whole thing is difficult to understand. The whole dialogue back and forth is hard. Did Moshe Rabbeinu did not know this in the beginning? Hashem says, guess what? You know who the one that makes people speak? He knew that. So what's Moshe Rabbeinu's argument? What's Hashem's response? You'll understand this based on an introduction. It's a fascinating thing. I thought I was going to explain what happened in our world and prior to our world that we live in now. A machlekes between various great Kabbalists and what the Arizal's take on it is. And it seems that this would be the Chassidic approach is according to the Arizal. But let's see. It's a Kabbalistic work called Sefer HaTumuna. It says over there, it's the introduction to the third Tumuna. This world that we live in is the second Shemitah. Shemitah is a set of 7 years, culminating with a sabbatical. So the world that we live in now is the second set of 7. And prior to this world, there was one more Shemitah. There was another set of 7, which was flowing from the Midah of Chesed. So within the Midas, the supernal emanations of Hashem, there was a set of 7 years, which came from Chesed being the first Sfira, and that brought about a world.
I'm pretty sure this is the Sefer that Rabbi Kaplan Al Shalom draws from to reconcile science and Torah.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to see it.
Yeah.
However, he says, before this set of 7 worlds that we have now, there was another one. And this Shemitah that we have now, It's from Pachad, which is Gvura. So there's 7 midas. The first one brought about a set of 7 years, whatever that block means. But from there, that was the first world. Came from Chesed, which means it was a very kind reality, good, living, loving, giving, and so on. And now we have a second world, 2.0, which comes from Pachad, which is the second Sphira, which is Gvura, also a set of 7. Now he's going to explain that the 7 is are 7 millennia. And therefore her paths, her ways of this world are harsh, they're strong, and they're harsh, and they're evil. Unfortunately, we live in a reality that this world has a lot of possibility and potential of real negativity and real harshness. In the first world that existed, it was kindness, and it was loving, and it was a very good thing. Now, the parentheses, he says, when we say the Shemitah, or the set of 7, it's the 6,000 years of a world, and then the 7th millennia is when it gets destroyed. Now, we know from other places destruction doesn't necessarily mean destruction. It can mean a totally new level. It's destruction in regards to what we have now. The new reality is a destruction, but it's in parentheses for a reason. Point is, this world is the second one. There was one before this. And that's why in this world, this one that we live in, which comes from Pachad, the Gvura, the discipline, harshness, there was a first destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. The second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. All of these things are obviously negative, and they came with a lot of pain and anguish and suffering. And the reason is because the world, the source of it, emanated from a place which is Gvura. However, by the first Shemitah, the world before ours, the first world, which came from Chesed, as mentioned, the whole process and the purpose and the drive, the goal was from a very different way, and we were trying to accomplish something else, and we weren't dealing or battling with harshness and evil. The Torah itself that we already had was in a different manner. It manifested itself in different ways. It wasn't a different Torah, but it played out in a different way. There was only good and kindness. It was a great world. This is the opinion of the Sefer HaTmuna. And following him went the later Kabbalists. To judge from here, later Kabbalists came and said, based on this, there's got to be another 5 sets of Shemitahs, because obviously it's going to be 7. Everything works in sets of 7, especially when you're dealing with the Midas. So you have 7. First is Chesed, second is current, which is Gvura, and there must be another 5 sets after this world of 7, which I guess the next one would be from Tiferes, and then that's the next one from Netzach, and so on. Kineged Zayin Midas Al Yenes, which correspond to the 7 higher worlds. So we have this statement from the Sefer HaTmuna, a obviously very reputable and holy Kabbalistic source, and he says we are world 2, and we're Gvura as opposed to the first one, which was Chesed, and that's why, unfortunately, we witnessed in our history destruction. But Arizal, he argues with these later Mekubalim, the fact that they learned that you must have 5 Shemitahs, deriving this from the Tmuna, he says that's not the case. We don't need another 5 sets of these 7s. And also regarding this, that this world is a second Shemitah, and also the fact that this world that we live in is the second Shemitah, he also argues about that, even though he agrees, but he argues about a specific part of that, as follows. That's why the Torah began with Beis, Bereshis. What's 2? Beis is 2. Why does it start with 2? To tell you there was already one Shemitah before this one, and then the Torah comes along and says Bereshis. Arizal explains, yes, this is the second world, and it's second Shemitah. We're not trying to say there was a physical world before ours. That's not what the Tmuna means. He's not even arguing with him, he's explaining. There was some kind of spiritual reality. It was not like this physical world that we have now. Im shamayim v'aretz gashmiyim, with material heaven and earth. V'deimim tzemei chayim medaber, and minerals, vegetations, animals, and people. That's not what that world was. This whole reality of a heaven and an earth and minerals and things that grow and animals and people, that was only in this current world, in the second Shemitah. But in that world which did exist, we didn't have those material things. Rather, the Shemitah which did exist before this, as referenced in the Tumuna, that is the world of Tayu.
You're saying there was no cotton candy in that world?
Maybe we got cotton candy and coffee.
Okay.
But no people to enjoy it. Actually, cotton would be tzeimeach, so that would be an issue. So no, they were. I'm not sure how they managed. Maybe that's why it didn't last.
That's right.
The Shemitah which came before this one was the world of Tayu, which means the Zayin Malchin Kadmoin, the Tayu, the 7 original kings of Tayu Shemesu, which died, which is the idea of spiritual spheres. Says the Alter Rebbe, what the Arizal is implying, and really what the Tmuna is saying, that yes, there was a world before ours, but it's not a physical world. It's what we refer to as the world of Tayu. There was a world which was chaotic, as we'll explain more, but the concept was it didn't last. It was a spiritual thing. It had to do with spheres that busted. And the Shemitah that we have now, which we said is the second set, the world that we live in, and again, 7 here, 7 millennia, this is the world of Tikkun, the world of order, where things have a proper synthesis, measurements, it works, and you have sustainability. Like it's known in the writings of the Arizal, this concept that we had a world of Tayu and a world of Tikkun. Just briefly, especially for those that are watching online, a brief note on Tayu and Tikkun. Tayu, which we'll get to some details shortly, is the concept where you have a lot of light, which means spiritual energy and revelation of godliness, but the recipient, meaning receptacles and tools known as kalim, vessels that process this light and energy and use it to create and manifest, was much smaller than the energy that was going inside, and therefore it busted, and it was not sustainable. But loosely, this is known as Elam HaTayu, chaotic world. So the way that Alter Rebbe learns, the way that Arizal learns, this concept of this being second world, base, it's Tikkun versus Tayu. However, you should know there are 2 souls from the earlier Shemitah which did make it here. Again, not people, but 2 souls that came from Elam HaTayu. They yardu v'nimshachu lemata. They descended and came down the Shemitah Shniya to the second Shemitah. We are in Tikkun now. It's working. There are 2 neshamas which came from Tikkun. Who are they? They're Chanoich Moshe. Chanoich and Moshe. We know that Chanoich, Torah tells us, was a man that went with Hashem, meaning he followed in the ways of Hashem. And then, of course, we have Moshe Rabbeinu. What's the B'chanech Ksiva is Halach Neach Esolikim? Neach went with Hashem. Now, when the Torah says that, literally it means he was going the ways of Hashem. It was a bad time. It was the era of Noach, or leading up to Noach. People were very wicked, immoral, and ended up in a flood. But Chanoich was the exception. He was going with Hashem. But the term "and he went" means he already went. That's implying that he was already here in the world of Tayu, and this is his second time that he's involved. So by his halach, he was already here. He already went with Hashem in the first Shemitah. Moshe also, we have this reference that he's been here before, because it says, from the water I pulled him out, which of course talks about Basia, Pari's daughter, who rescued Moshe from the Nile River. But I drew him out means Dainu Mishmita Rishena, from the first Shemitah, The first Shemitah, as we said, is kindness. It comes from the first Shemitah, which is Chesed. And water is Chesed. I drew him out of the water means this soul, this person is drawn out. He comes from the first world of Tikkun. And from there, from Chesed, from water, I drew him out to the Shemitah that we have now. The main descent that they have to this Shemitah, why are they here? This is to correct, to fix the worlds. Right? Why are they here?
Why are we calling each of these worlds, Shemitahs again?
Why did we choose Shemitah? That's what the Tmuna says. It fits because you have 7 millennia, seven days. It works.
Shemitah like shechting?
That would be Shechita. Shemitah is sabbatical. So,
Right.
yeah, 7. Somewhere the Mem and the Ches get exchanged.
Yeah.
A set that ends up that culminates with a sabbatical.
Yeah. Laying the land fallow here.
Exactly. Yeah. The Iker Yiridasim, the main reason the descent why they came to this Shemitah is in order to fix the worlds. Kihem Sharsham Gvayim Oid, their root is very high. They are beyond the Neshamas of Shemitah. Because they come from a place, they meaning Leisha and Chanech, a level which is beyond the Neshamas of this Shemitah, meaning they have a very high level of bittul, of subservience and humility and dedication to Hashem, which more than you find in this Shemitah. So, Toyu, or the neshamas that come from that world, are have much more bittul. And that's why you find. That's why it says by Moshe Rabbeinu, "What are we?" What does it mean? What are we? Who says what are we? What I mean, I'm whatever I am. What are we is an expression of tremendous humility. Where do you get this level of humility? Torah says that Moshe Rabbeinu was a exceedingly humble person. Torah testifies that there's been nobody as humble as Moshe Rabbeinu on earth. Yet he was so great because his neshama came from that level, which is all about bittul. And Moshe Rabbeinu also saw, meaning he experienced, interacted with souls that were even greater than him in this prior world, like Lemech, Chanech, Lemech, and so on. Therefore, they came down to this Shemitah to correct the world which is now has issues, to fix it. Which is a fascinating thing. Chanech was here before the generation of the flood. The world was in the ultimate lowness, very low level during the flood, immoral. When Shagos of Kate's called Basar Balafana, like it says, the end of all flesh has come before me. That's how bad it was. Hashem doesn't easily say that. That's why Chanech came down to this world to fix this world. So he was from the world of Tayu. He knew what it was like. He was a very high soul. And he came down, it should not go back completely to Tayu. The world initially was deserving to go back to its original state, which was void and empty or hollow, just gone, because of the behavior of the people and the animals. But Chanech was here before that, and he caused, through his efforts and his fixing, that the world shouldn't be so decayed. And instead, Rak, I'm saying quote unquote, but Rak only, there was a Mabal al Aretz, a Tara Aretz. Instead of having full destruction, where the world is just deleted and reset, we ended up with a flood, which was here to purify the world, as opposed to bring it back to its state of Teva. The Yesharu Neach Banav Kayam B'Teva, and Neach and his sons will remain alive in the Teva. But if Chanech was not here, the world would be completely destroyed. But thanks to his being here from the earlier world, which we now know is a spiritual world called Tayu, but his soul emanates from there, he was able to impact this improvement in the world. But if not for him, there'd be no, there wouldn't even be Neach and his children. Similarly, Moshe Rabbeinu came down to redeem the Jewish people from Mitzrayim, that we should have the giving of the Torah through him. So this, we're trying to understand what's this concept of Moshe Rabbeinu tells Hashem, I have a speech impediment. And Hashem's response, who do you think makes people speak? To understand this, it brings this Kabbalistic concept that Beis Reishis implies we're the second Shemitah. There's one before us. And actually there's some Kabbalists who feel that there's going to be 5 more, corresponding to each one of the spheres. First one was Chesed, this one's a pretty harsh place. Arizal disagrees, and he says, no, there's only 2. And in fact, it's not even 2, it's not, the first one is not even a real world, the physical world, it was just a spiritual world called Torah. There's no people there, no material existence. However, we have 2 neshamas which come from there, and because they're so great, they come from the previous world, where their source is so high from Toyu, they have the ability to accomplish some tremendous things in this world. Chanech was able to avoid the situation of full destruction during the times of the flood, and he only had a Mabul, and Noach and his family were saved. And Moshe was able to get out of Mitzrayim despite being in the 49th level gate of purity, and accomplish the bringing of a Torah into this world, which is a huge deal, because you now have the connection between higher worlds and lower worlds, and spirituality can be infused with materialism. It's big stuff. Okay. How are we on time? Got a nice fancy pocket watch, silver with chain.
Yeah, like 1 minute.
Stop here is a great place to stop.
Okay, perfect.
Join us again soon in person or online. We finish this fascinating mimer. Remember, subscribe.